Hello, wonderful people. Thank you for joining me on this journey of stepping up to your potential. I'm Sonda Robinson, and I'm a student of self-discovery, freely using pretty much any tool which yields results. I believe that we are the divine exploring itself. And to me, this means I need to take my opportunity to serve that mission to the best of my ability by learning how to use and express as much of my potential as I can. I invite you to learn with me and work on expressing the amazing you that is already inside.
The setup. It would be marvelous if we could always learn things the easy way. Unfortunately, much of humanity seems to be wired differently. When we're comfortable, we don't want to change things. We're comfortable. But once comfortable, it seems that things have to get really bad before lessons are learned. At least for myself in my youth, though I did learn. For example, I figured out early on that when I got depressed, it was a message from my soul that I wasn't doing what I needed to. Essentially, it was my subconscious self letting me know that things weren't right, and it was up to me, the ego, to figure them out. As an example, when trying to work up the strength to end my first marriage, we went to a therapist and she spoke with us together and then separately. After the first meeting, she told me that I exhibited all the signs of clinical depression. As she's reaching for her prescription pad, she's telling me that she can prescribe something to help with that. I told her no, I did not want the pills. She stopped writing and looked at me with no little surprise and said, "Can I ask why?" I replied, "Because if I get rid of the discomfort, I won't have the strength to make the changes that I know I need to." She blinked a few times in clear surprise, put the pad away, and finally said, "All right then." I know my pattern now, so I honor the depression as best I can and make the changes needed as quickly as possible. But what happens if I do not honor that energetic request for change? The story. I was in my early 20s when I had a sudden harebrained idea to move to California. What rubbish! But a fun fantasy. That was on the other coast from where I lived, and I didn't know anyone there at all. So I ignored that tidy prompting and life went on. In hindsight, I can see the spiral, but at the time it was so incremental that I did not really notice it. The proverbial frog in the pot of boiling water. Of course, I was also young and fairly ignorant of how my intuition worked for me. All I knew at the time is that I slowly spiraled downward until my life completely fell apart, and eventually I could barely muster the energy to do my own laundry. It took about 6 years for this process to fully play out, but the last 3 years before I finally did move is the episode of my life that I now dub the cosmic enema. And I sincerely hope you never have to go through this before you get the message to make the changes that you are being prompted to make. At the time, I was living my dream until it became a nightmare. On a rural 10-acre plot of land, a little stream running through it, my animals, but I swear everything I touched died. It was a devastating time, which included one dog being hit by a car and another being poisoned with antifreeze. We won't go into the goats kidding at midnight in January who decided they'd rather be outside in the wind than in the barn. At the same time this was happening, my finances were beyond in the toilet, which I spoke about in the last episode. Depressed doesn't even begin to cover the mental health issues going on during this period. My world quickly got so toxic that I had a choice: get out or die. That ridiculous fantasy from many years earlier of moving across the country, now it was an all-out directive, and I still did not want to go. The final straw that pried me out of my comfort zone, however painful that zone was actually a dream. So I declared bankruptcy and packed my car with what little I had left. No savings, no plan, no idea what I needed to do, but finally willing to take a leap of faith over the cliff edge because I had to. Even after I moved, the few things I brought with me all got stripped away. My car, my last dog, my clothes, my sewing machine, my bike, all of it was stripped away until I literally started over from nothing. It's been called a cleansing, but I think cosmic enema is more accurate. While some might call this a dark night of the soul, or ego as the case may be, that would indicate that there was some level of confusion or awakening that needed to happen. In this case, no, I knew exactly what I needed to do, but I really did not want to do it. I had my marching orders from Soul, but decided the ego knew better. More fool me. So hear me when I tell you, listen to the whispers. Your higher self, your soul, God's plan for you, however you want to think of it, is whispering to you what you need to do. If you don't want to, well, I totally understand. Really, really, I do. But if you don't heed the whispers, be prepared for the screaming. My full mantra is listen to the whispers so you don't have to hear the screaming. Boy, did I learn that lesson. Now, when I get a soul prompting, that knowing which comes from the core of me, I follow it. Wherever it leads, I'll follow. Been there, done that, and you can keep the t shirt. So if you follow the soul's prompting, everything works out great and beautiful, right? I wish. A few years later, after finally moving and getting largely settled and learning the valuable lessons about my relationship with money, it was time for the next major test. Person came into my life and I knew her. I also knew she needed to come live with us. Soul's marching instructions received and obeyed. What followed was 8 years of what I now dub the emotional blender. But this emotional blender period took me into my darkest places in a very different way than the cosmic enema period did. See, the first episode was all external, an unmaking of the self within the external world. This second period was truly a crucible which stripped away the false ideas I had about who I am, an internal unmaking of the self. It threw me face first into the hall of mirrors and forced me to learn to find my real truth and understand my real strength, the Dr. Manhattan period I spoke of before. The point. Wherever you are in your life, however hard it may be, I urge you to face things with as much courage and integrity as you can muster. I know, trust me, I know just how hard these things can be. They can last years and will last as long as you need them to. Take the steps which are needed to start moving through, and you'll find help comes from strange and unexpected places. But if you prefer to continue to make excuses and refuse to move forward out of fear of the changes being asked for, it's just going to keep getting harder and harder. What I've done to make processing these particularly dark and grueling times a little bit easier is to give them funny names. Cosmic enema? Ew. But I find it amusing and it allows me to process the experience in a positive way. Same thing with the emotional blender. Tough as all heck, but a gold mine which did more for my personal growth than anything else I have ever faced. And you know what? Each dark episode that I can find my way through makes it easier to find my way back the next time. In the movie The Watchmen, the bad guy attempts to kill Dr. Manhattan by hitting him with an energy weapon that blew apart the molecules of his being. He recovered quickly and said, "Putting myself back together was the first thing I learned." So true. For every dark night of the ego that you face and work your way through, you learn more and more about yourself, your true self. Every dark night is an unmaking of some aspect of yourself that does not serve you. And every dark night recovery is a remaking of yourself in its truer form, teaching you how to put yourself back together, showing you who you really are and what's really important to you. I wish I could say that dark nights get easier, but they have not for me. But then I'm hard-headed and don't like to change things when I'm comfortable, so I tend to need some pretty hard boots to the butt to get me moving, I'm sad to say. Hopefully, you're wiser. What I have figured out is that each dark night is an opportunity to level up, like in a video game when you face the final challenge of a level before being allowed to progress. As I described above, it's a form of unmaking so that the remaking is a more honest and better reflection of who you truly are. At this time in our collective growth, I think it's all hands on deck. We're all here now because we are needed, every one of us. No one is insignificant, even if you think others are, quote, terrible people, unquote, or 100% wrong about everything. We are all needed, and doing the work, as uncomfortable and sometimes painful as it can get, is a major step towards being able to express and hold the true power, the true light that we are capable of. I'm here doing this podcast not because I expect anyone to listen to me, but because even if no one ever hears this at all, I'll have put forth these vibration into our collective with love, with the intention of serving the all, the one, the many, my soul siblings, my fellow humans. It's my way of reminding myself where I've been and what I still have to do because I want to, because I love humanity and our potential, and I desperately want to see us begin truly expressing it. TLDR, a dark night of the ego is beyond an invitation. It's a demand for growth. They are not easy, and you might have multiples in a lifetime. Work through them with courage and integrity, and then let them go, because there's more to do on the other side.
I hope you found value in today's episode. You could really help me out by liking and subscribing. The more likes and subscribes it gets, the more the inspiration of stepping up to your potential spreads. This podcast is available through iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and many other platforms. I also post a copy on YouTube, and each episode is transcribed and available in print format on my website at steppinguptoyourpotential.com. Until next time, always remember to keep stepping up. You got this.